Time to talk science news now, and I'm joined by ABC Science editor Jonathan Webb. First of all, Jonathan, we've had a lot of people writing in with answers to the Friday brain teaser. Why do so many photos in watch advertisements have the clock face showing at 10 past 10? What's the answer?
It is all to do, Kylie, with the psychology of marketing, and I've pulled this question directly from the most recent episode of All in the Mind, which people can find in the ABC Listen app, which is well worth a listen. So there's a few reasons. I mean, practically, first of all, that kind of time means that the hands don't obscure the manufacturer's logo, but also it's symmetrical. Actually, just before 10 past 10, or indeed just after 10 to 2, the hands are in a very symmetrical position, which is pleasing to the brain. But the most interesting thing is you could also do that with about, 20 past 8 or 20 to 4, but they choose these ones where the hands are pointing upwards because it's similar to the shape of a smile. So it's a happy kind of a time, which also pleases the brain and creates positive associations.
So you think
with
happy watch, I will buy. Is that
yes,
that's
exactly.
the idea? Excellent. Now, Jonathan, scientists have described one of the most complete specimens ever discovered of a pterosaur in Brazil. Tell me all about this remarkable creature.
It is a remarkable creature. There are probably three things that are particularly remarkable about it, Kylie. First of all, the creature itself. It's known as Tupandactylus navigans, which is a magnificent name for a magnificent creature. You kind of have to imagine a cross between a lizard and a bat and a chicken, with a magnificent crest, about a 40-centimetre crest on its head. Stood about a metre tall and had these spindly arms that when they unfold would have a wingspan of about 2.5 metres, so kind of a large lizard bat chicken, but a remarkable kind of a creature, and we've never really seen it in this much detail. That's the second remarkable thing. As you mentioned, the level of preservation. So it's the first time this group of pterosaurs, the flying lizards, has been seen in this much detail. We've only ever found skull fragments of it, in fact, before. But this one was very nicely preserved in mud, which became stone, and the scientists were able to do CT scans, which revealed things like this ridiculous crest on its head, these soft tissues that we don't normally see in any detail. Now, the third and most remarkable thing about this fossil was that it was discovered as it was being smuggled through Brazil's largest port in Sao Paulo in 2013. Because of a police raid. So this was among 3,000 fossils that were recovered in a raid of a smuggling exercise in Brazil. And this is a real problem for the paleontology community in Brazil, because they get sort of ferreted away to private collections around the world. And it was only because of this police raid back in 2013 that we're able to have the scientific community describe this fossil. It was actually sawed into 6 pieces, this slab, so that it was easier to hide. But the scientists have put it back together and done these scans and revealed this creature in amazing detail.
Jonathan, that's unusual, surely, that such a scientifically significant specimen should be recovered from smugglers.
Well, we just don't know how many amazing things are not available for scientific study around the world, Kylie. And it's a particular problem in countries like Brazil where there is a significant smuggling trade. And so it's really fantastic to see this study published by Brazilian scientists and this specimen now available for everyone to see in a Brazilian museum in Sao Paulo. So the more we can do to make these specimens available to science, the better.
Now, 4 papers published in Nature this week apparently attempting to trace the family tree of all the cells in the human body, from the trillions of cells in an adult all the way back to the embryo. How do scientists go about beginning to trace these lineages?
It's pretty remarkable work, this, Kylie, yeah. So it just tries to wind back the clock, really. So they do it by looking at the DNA, because there is a trace of the history of every cell in your body laying down in the DNA, because we all start out, you and me and every single one of our listeners, as a single cell. And we all know this, but it's kind of remarkable to think about and pause and just consider every now and then. So that single cell, when the sperm met the egg, has to divide into two cells, and those two cells have to divide into four cells, and eventually you end up with the trillions of cells that make up the, walking, talking, self-important meat puppet that is you or I. And because of every single time that division happens, the 3 billion or so letters of the genetic code, which is longer than any book you can think of that will be discussed this weekend in the great weekend of books, they all have to be copied. And so mistakes get made. And the cell has a fantastic proofreading mechanism which actually goes back and fixes some of that mistakes, but some of them hang around. And those get passed down to every single one of the daughter cells from the cell that first introduced that mistake. So if you think about it, by taking a cell from yours or my brain and comparing it to a cell from, say, our liver, they would have a different pattern of mutations, and they might be very different, which would suggest that they departed from each other a long way back in, say, embryonic development, but they might be very similar to a different cell, say, in the skin. So scientists, by taking these tiny biopsies of just 100 cells and doing very precise genetic sequencing from a whole range of organs, from a whole group of different individuals, have managed to trace this whole family tree of cell divisions right the way back to the first cell division, including in a 78-year-old woman was one of the people who heroically have donated their bodies to science for this kind of work to happen. So it's remarkable that in a 78-year-old individual, we've traced the cell divisions all the way back to the very first one.
Extraordinary insights, really. Thank you, Jonathan.
My pleasure, Carly.
Dr. Jonathan Webb is the ABC's science editor. For more of the latest science news, make sure you're following ABC Science on Facebook and Twitter.